Hello, America. Hello, New York. Hello, New York bros. Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island. Listen, please. The species body cries through pamphleteers. Who cares? Ready? Tell Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn, look, while Staten Island lifts, there's gifts to see. Now, Boroughs Book carves New York's nook, its way for big men and even queens. In the Boroughs Book notes native way alone, one way redeems. Call through your teams. Call through your sciences, one way redeems. Let species body, let species bodies pamphleteers now cry out streams. We train till native pure, one way redeems. Think native things. So the first paragraph of the Boroughs Book, which is about the system that gains the resources we need to fix ourselves, not just as locations, areas, and states and countries, relative to what is worse than that, including how grouped, worse than that, conscious with sophistication of how they are grouped, understanding of that per science since before we were born. Our oldest experts, everything. See, old and young is about the simultaneous, but without being missed, separated from the means and demonstrations from that. So, the Boroughs Book, the boroughs of New York, the native system, no matter who we are, nature is demonstrating how it comes with a hyper-native system. And you can't invent that, even if you're Native American, which is increasingly, a difference that is increasingly more important than ours. And the only exception to that is if and when and how we're fighting for that quality of fact, human nature by what is actually the simultaneous, what is actually simultaneously recorded, for example. Those treatments about punishing people relative to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, for example, in Washington, D.C., with the January 6th narratives and the insurrection narratives, they're measuring and maintaining themselves fake, distinctly from how the breaching method measures and maintains them. And already maintained them used remotely, pretending other defenses of premises treatment, sequence treatments, quality, effect treatment, nature, treatments that can't defend themselves, but self-value the fake sides, the fake differences, and the exploitations of exceptions and exception nature consciously while pretending others simultaneously at all locations, areas, and states in collusion with those attempts of and actual acts and methods of putting things before juries, putting and making and or not, usually not, using the locations into branch and all tied to them, exception nature tied to them, privately and other, planting evidences together, formally at the interbranch locations, all private exception nature tied to them, and informally at locations as their roles with everything bad that comes before them. They're recorded how kept needed to hide. Sequence shifts, final act, progressive lies with their worst patients and criminals. There is complete possession of both political parties. For example, per their roles with the branches of government individually grouped together at locations, and at the formal ones and all privatized them. Like, for example, with medicines and drugs and racketeering in collusion with the people supposed to be against that, attaching people to fake words and fake ties to themselves, fake roles with their roles with drugs, because they are undercover police that are also involved in fabricating audio and video with a whole bunch of other nations that are also involved against their own too, with sick justice people involved with pseudo medicine, pretended legitimate medicine, with lawyers originally still criminally foreign influence, with the interbranch used remotely criminally foreign influence, not just at the interbranch locations, having kept and keeping it even preemptively shown how needed by to be hid by each age of their fact-treating nature, including the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and all that having been juxtaposed specifically for this. That's a sick thing to be able to pretend not to realize that, and how those kids from New York and adults from New York that went through their whole lives not watching the news. When I try to watch the news, there's too much fake insidiousness natures of positive and negative treatments. There are too many of them simultaneously. And since they were kids, they had other being replacing where and how we were obligated by our founders to teach them about criminal insidious natures of positive and negative treatments and collusion. To teach them about forced time treatment simultaneously, too fast, too slow, to get around forever nature, for example, as an identity is. Only the extent of it is debatable. See, but they want it and need it originally and still to keep debates used effectively to keep exceptions and exception nature self-valued, having been self-valued, blame, fake exceptions, exception nature used by the courts and with everyone else in collusion. Even the worst killers and people next to the body don't be responsible. People involved with the families and tied to them, with the forensics locations associated with that, not by accident. There was complete possession over all identity ground locations since before our founding parents were born, relevant to the treatments of the infrastructure self-value that had recorded since before cars rose with the torture and slavery of the fact-treating nature of our founders, of our founding parents in America and other countries. The identity thefts, frauds, and slanders against them still self-valued too, because of how they have campuses of each age and nature, including if they are private and or if they are public, including the colleges and universities. See, these are from off those locations, having been effectively maintained on off them. Further motivations, nature's needs, interests, collusion with live progressions and uses of them, collusion with uses of that having been sustained, for example, to keep motivated through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, for example, how in the backgrounds they have people checking up real close on the nature of the kids coming up. But they're using those people watching real close and told not to speak about it, to fabricate audio and video, to set up little exception nature. For example, relevant to where and how, the people pretending that people should be standing up against things that seem racist. They are involved with recorded consciously, sickly distinctly in the suburbs and sickly distinctly in the cities, to hide how sickly non-distinctly the same people pretending passions and emotions against racism, our families and interbranch and foreign and collusion with identity theft, fraud, slanders, as people that are also recorded consciously confessing, demonstrating, recording their roles as interbranch family members and how through overt criminal enterprises fitted to collusion with them, needed to make statements as confessions and make nonverbal confirmations relevant to other people speaking for them. For example, we have to address this as 5 distinct identities of criminal insidiousness nature that are inseparable from each other. A hyper criminal insidiousness nature, for example, not just all the countries A through Z together, but countries A through Z too has archetypal criminal enterprises as modern nations in the semi-ancient trap, only capable of, as shock and awe, having defended abridged sciences, a tactically, criminally re-engineered republic, and rolls with that as exception, nature, other motivations, natures, needs, interests, all engineered, propagated for breaching screens, plural. And that was progressed until methods off the records are maintained individually, grouped, and together manifest, but also hyper off the records, even from that. And that even countries individually group and together, they can't stop criminal insidiousness with all locations, areas, and states, because they are in collusion with it, not legitimately trying to be extended to all locations already involved with all bad things or whatever like that, so they could be able to know things. Those people are involved with identity theft, fraud. They have uses of lie progressions relative to where and how they knew and measured and maintained the breaching method distinctly from our own, where and how people are at age of fact human nature, not allowed to speak about positive and negative simultaneously. See, for example, slavery, what came with slavery was simultaneous torture and uses of by a method. Simultaneously, what came with that was identity thefts and frauds. Now, this is including against and slanders. That's specifically to cause and to exploit and to keep worse than obfuscated nature's identity, a volume that is hyper invisible but still discernible, for example, as a hyperconjunction to all conjunctive parts of English grammar and of other languages. And so this is the Trinity is about this. And 5 pillars of Islam are about this. But the stewards of Islam and stewards of Jesus Christ's name, they have the first part of they have roles simultaneously. The church, yes, it defended the religion. For example, the proverbial church, where they have different books, holy books. They have a New Testament that left out the first part of the Old Testament. So only I have to understand is up to here, and where the science is sharing identity. See, they don't leave that out by accident. Pretending passions, emotions anyway. Valuing the other parts of the Old Testament with passions, emotions dishonestly first. See, passions and emotions, if you're supposed to use them, if you're going to use them for serious subjects, you don't fake. You speak. I mean, they're about the simultaneous. If it's not about the simultaneous and exception nature, you're not speaking about passion and emotions honestly. You're using truth for lies. There are, in other words, there were and are needs and means for us to freak out, get angry, and stay calm, and need to be able to report things calmly regarding how they abuse Black people sickly distinctly from how they abuse people they label white too. Because where there is manifest are styles of logic and styles of their treatments of color as forced, of physical culture as forced by the breaching method, only allowed to speak or they hurt you. And simultaneously interbranch more and more. They fabricate audio and video at locations. They are reliant upon people pretending passions and emotions to, even in the stuff that's not like, it's like reality based, but it's not real reality. They have needs to keep pretending to be honestly observing human social relativity to each other and to those around us ourselves. They've been using all kinds of evidence reception, identity reception, racketeering methods, increasingly on locations, increasingly showing how needing to hide that from our each age of correlation nature's actually inherent active progressive means, showing how they could magically get each age of correlation nature self-valuing roles with uses of criminally foreign influence, positive treatments and negative treatments simultaneously, identity treatments, names treatments simultaneously, sense and sensibilities treatments simultaneously. Same people pretending to be against coaching little girls for stuff. They were our men and women interbranch and intermilitary involved with forcing that stuff because they need to hide life progressions because because their boyfriends growing up, partially because of the men and women were lying about other people and through the kids, and their own kids. They're spreading lies and slanders of people. The slanders part is critical because the identity theft, fraud, slander is one of the things that is sickly distinctly against everyone, sickly non-distinctly rather, because we have to discern how sickly distinctly and non-distinctly the breaching method was operative, was operating, was functional. One function /S, same way computers work. This is a databases-oriented breaching method since before computers, complete possession over the human fact-keeping nature qualities. Like how everyone was criminal and ceaseless natures of positive and negative treatments, blaming other things, others and or themselves, for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, when they know that sickly, distinctly criminally foreign influenced education was behind it and roles that those identity ground locations had. Even the home school are kept with the private and the public school needing to hide the same life progressions. Even the private campuses of each age and nature, even colleges, universities from off the campuses already manifest next to the campuses are locations, even fire campuses and other places, intercity connected through time. These are people involved with positions that have been kept criminally foreign influence and simultaneously delusions raw, specifically to keep natures that can't defend themselves without having to simultaneously pretend legitimacy or morality, using other people's information too. So the foreign and domestic have styles of logic that are inclusion here. For example, bound other than how we are supposed to be bound as individual, group, and species identity of volume. So individually grouped and together, they're here and there, the suits and ties encounters where they have disputes and things like that, and where they have a positive, there are criminal and seditious natures of positive and negative and collusion. And because of a certain type of child abuses that is consciously and having been consciously on and off the youngest ages, making confessions and demonstration of the roles with the interbranch, fake with and roles setting out at people who act with the interbranch and have roles with doctors, and they act like those with plainclothes police, people involved like pretending to be or actually as Confederate flag themed, KKK themed, identity theft, fraud, slander roles, also with black, white judges, even female black, white judges involved with the principal child abusers campus. And with these, how they speak by using methods. Like, for example, two people approach me in a car, make confessions in the car, like this, with these military police family next to Webb School, with this Justice Kovinsky. I don't know his brother's name. I don't know his parents' first name. And their roles with the O'Brien families near me. Now, these are executive police form families. Right? They pretend passions, emotions, and background when we use their names because they were sequence shifting. They bring their names up and our names up, and they have roles with fabricating emails with Connecticut News. These are also retired and standing interbranch and intermilitary involved with CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, other, national, international news, even the schools they come from. Central Connecticut State University has roles with criminally foreign influence uses of their students and their roles with identity thefts and frauds, also in the form of falsified police reports, wires of crime rolls, falsified police report rolls, uses of them rolls, stories they already used criminally foreign influence, attaching people to fake, then they have to hide life aggressions. They have to value means to get away with that. They have remote uses of, so there are people that had schools that abused them when they were kids. And it was from off them that they were involved also together through time, involved with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Then they go on and get jobs with the Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, people involved with state police families, people involved with FBI families, people involved with CIA families, people involved with court families, people involved with families that on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state prison offices. They all get caught up in life aggressions. They all get caught up in identity thefts and frauds rules. These are also people involved with remote uses of the people and the people next to the people next to schools, involved with identity theft, frauds, sequence shifts, and uses of them too, as where and how they were at the locations with the interbranch and all private to them, increasingly have to hide lives with all like the people they are passionately against, like their patients and criminals and innocent people they've been framing. Also, everyone missing it. Everyone is forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to ignore means, to demonstrate and tell on those pretending passions and emotions, to be pretending to be against racism when and how they are involved with identity thefts and frauds with the little sick fakes, as anyone with the law, including the overt criminal enterprises and private, that's why they're kept needing to hide the life aggressions. One of the ways they have each age of correlation, natures, styles of logic recorded, maintained, by our own, and maintained by the breaching method's own interests and method /S means and needs to value having been hurt and to value hurt. Each age of correlation nature short words as revelations, where truths as a nature that aren't truths used for lies is capitalized upon, not just economically, not just as a value progression, relativity. Boxing, it teaches things. Prepare your souls. The species body train. Hear Legion's name. Return in folds. Prepare your goals. So the Boroughs Book will train you, New York Boroughs. Here. Send this message to the New York citizens. Prepare. Come here. Someone to respond from New York, please. Here. Tell Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn, look, while Staten Island lifts. This gifts the sea. Now Boroughs Book carves New York's nook. Forbid yet men. Or shall I say, now Boroughs Book carves New York's voice. Forbid yet men and even queens. And the Boroughs Book notes nature's way alone one way redeems. Call through your teams. Call through your sciences one way redeems. Let species bodies pamphleteers cry out in streams. We train till native pure one way redeems. Think native things. That's not just words. Nature is native pure. That's why and how our founders wanted and needed us to decipher why and how they named the president /chief. Not per those fake narratives, incomplete, Boxings. Boxings or says, or not. The Trinity will have one way alone. So we train to get real cold as one, while while we get real hot, to find the warm, the way. So native prey, boxings, which sends us sky, yet blue, to show our means, Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space / existence, being its identity and our identity of relationship to that which is bound as space / existence, greater than and more finite than, while as the value as them individually grouped in together, space, existence, and the / between them. We are an increasing identity of volume as forever nature. And like the nature of a battery, it's an identity of relationship to positive and to negative simultaneously, like the nature of a current. Yeah. That's what they're teaching about. Everything's about its identity of volume. Its identity of volume is identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, and where volume equals value as nature / nature as value. No theory. This is about hyper relativity. This is about relativity too, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and or also relevant to 1/3, so 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. Also, only usable and discernible the extent of the revelations tied to this. I forgot what point I was going to make tied to it. The point is, the pamphleteers are one of the ways we could fund what we have to do, what we have to pay for. But we're also going to do this better than free. We could do this with executive orders. We could do this with a unity that's already standing. And we could do this with a unity that's already standing and with already simultaneously other countries individually grouped in together, and the species of body of volume together at once, realizing, thank God, we're going to go to this MH and trap together. We're going to move as Legion 1 / tribes to check ourselves, because when even the hyper invisible, you have to be able to really think hard to discern if positive is being used as a criminal insidious nature of positive or not just negative. So we have time treatments, simultaneously too fast, too slow. We have them backed into logics the same way the overt criminal enterprises are. That's why they are kept needing on to hide the same sequence shift, finite active progressive lies, uses of corners, uses of next to schools, on off schools, roles with fake passions and emotions, and criminal uses of the same criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments, roles with identity theft, fraud. See, then they can't tell the truth when they have things go before courts, because they were involved with planting evidence with the people, including where they have people speaking about other people behind their backs. So, ill way protracts. Return. Hear legion, hear your name. Religion. Decipher, here. See means appear. Boxings. It teaches things. See Romulus. See, Remus has that state self-value, and that remotely played. Here many paid, but not was bought, but fake. The nature yearns. Environment is just a tool to say that too about nature. Environment, it's only a part in nature. We need a quality of fact treatment nature. That means we need a quality of fact treatment that deals with positive and negative and sequence value legitimately and not with physical delusions simultaneously. While they're offensively sequence shifting self-valued predators, they know they have criminally foreign influenced intelligence community feeding them information simultaneously with the sick fakes and punks and their narratives that were involved with the World Trade Center attack. They're in collusion, if they made it up or not together too, because they might have done that because of the way they have studies and research and the reactions to when they have things good and bad, they're in collusion. You know, it's got nothing to do with who owns what hospital or who owns what campus, private or that, and this is that. Those are all excuses. It's from off the policing of this, of everything, and then the justifications of that are completely manifest, having been used remotely. Sick, they cannot defend themselves and us at the same time. They're backed into that same logic, sick killer logic that the overt criminal enterprises are and the private ones. Still with them needing to hide the same life progressions. Still with them needing to hide all what they have actually, you know, it was all that we're for the unions are like this, we're there for constituencies. Those unions are involved with the overt criminal enterprise, a whole bunch of other countries involved with identity theft frauds. They're lying with uses of readings of, no, they have readings of laws and statutes where they have the right to lie about other people with elections for unions, for example. They've been exploiting exceptions, using those lies focused categorically and timed, where they do little tricks where they say you're called to the office or something like that, and you walk back into a cafeteria, and then someone makes a confession statement to you and stuff like that about their roles with federal criminals before they even got caught, various natures of organized crime. They know these kids bring up these complicated things to strangers all at once, real fast, and then they don't even know each other. Then that's, in other words, that's part of what shows offensive evidence reception racketeering that is also fact treatment nature oriented. Same people pretending to be about facts findings offensively criminally foreign influence. Again, delusions wrought too, and preventing calm means to defend ourselves against themselves, lying about passions and emotions in our face, lying about the value of the simultaneous. You have some sick people that have been involved for a long time, locking down, and worse, every voice of New York, let alone the people who deny it. They have the evidences are inherent to their fact treatment nature qualities. And the nature of it itself has value. Nature's value as nature. So we're going to need to use words like phrases like criminal insidiousness more properly than you have had them heard used by your only allowed realized legal representatives. Criminally foreign influence, very, 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 very bad people with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones with them originally still. They know those job sites and those natures of industries and the people on them and all those stuff. They were and are involved with the that narratives that spill over. Needs to hide the actually recorded means to discern their actually recorded natures. They cannot, in other words, all these styles of qualities of fact treatment nature styles can't defend themselves offensively and afford at last, even once, that nature that could speak for the revolution. So never won. They left us to demonstrate this about how everyone was locked, pretending sense and sensibilities on various levels, fake and pretending others simultaneously. How that was and is being and having been exploited, how they had to hide, they had to value roles with sick people with sick courts and prisons already been having been kept needed to hide the same sequence shift foreign active progressive lies together, already having needed to pretend motivations like greed and things like that were involved with it. It's juxtaposed with worse because it's used of them criminally foreign influence leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. And they're leaving out the interbranch names because they're in the background when we have to use the names they brought up. Again, with evidence reception offensively, racketeering, identity reception, racketeering offensively. They're lying about their motivations of it too because it will bring up what was actually recorded, which is this, and then uses of it through time. I don't know all their names. I just know that people from Trinity College and people from CCSU colluded with predicate acts leading up to and in as roles leading up to and in cases and with depositions and with body dumping spots and with killers and with people next to the body dumping spots associated with those killers. And one, in other words, involved all kept needing to hide the same sequence shift, find act progressive lies together. And they didn't want to make those confessions too. Strangers like to find us. And then that's why they confirmed it online on Facebook and their roles with the houses and nonverbal confessions and verbal confessions from another place though before that tied to spots next to the state Connecticut judicial branch offices and along Route 3 intercities involved with various mayors and their family members and through time involved with executive branch and the judicial branch involved with child abusers of various natures and further with a principal child abusers campus and those streets near it, like with the Fianzas on Two Rod Highway with a whole bunch of people next to them and also on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices. And these are people also with the Dillon family and others with the FBI and others and the state judicial branch officer with a body dumping spot of Billy Grasso. These are all people associated with uses of people tied to John Scully and to a friend of his, involved also with narratives by the person of uses of, in other words, Billy Grasso, as people involved with the body dumping spots and federal crimes also with forensic locations involved with that through time and wire crimes with the news media in collusion with the FBI director in his defending capacities criminally and with various natures of federal criminals, including ones as his co-defendants and people tied to them various ways and their family members and their lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, lawyer of Robert Luskin, former Stamp Dean chairperson of Racketeering Influence Club Organization Act, and lawyer of Thaddeus Grabowski and of John LeConte and of Dominic Lapriata, involved with federal crimes, identity thefts and frauds, and people I never even had classes with, and people I had classes with involved with identity thefts, frauds, with them behind my back. All even on Facebook, people, pretending passions and emotions with various natures of courts personally tied to them criminally. On and off the Wethersfield Police Department, wire crimes rolls with them, switching names rolls with them, with the police form switching names and stuff like that. I caught them with the principal child abuser, my town's police chief 1 year ago, a Cintron. Also people from Puerto Rico with the name Cintron, involved also with Sandy Hook, with sequence shifts, people that work from Sandy Hook, involved also in Cromwell and other cities they brought up and were involved with their sequence shifts and drugs and medicine crimes also with their patients and criminals and doctors and their roles with people, the training of these police forms and the undercover police, plain clothes or whatever, and their acting coaches, etc. These are people, a whole bunch of people on off the state judicial branch. I was like Wethersfield Pizza involved with wire crimes with the Wethersfield police and the judicial branch through time, and federal crimes with database identity thefts and frauds behind my back since I was a kid. Their involvements with class placements, where they just because they were in my class. I never had a conversation with Stephen Stockwell. I never took part in the bullying of him. That was like prompted by a Paulsano Ray Claw in a math class. In other words, they were planting people in my classes that were, and once I got off because I knew it was involved with already recorded. I caught the interbranch, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed how they have roles with this stuff. Like, for example, the Revelations. It's way worse than this, but the Revelations relative to where and how that we have the answers at the youngest ages about how you could use the Revelations about where and how the Native Americans sickly distinctly, people with the black and white narrative sickly distinctly, and the colonists sickly distinctly, how they didn't and don't have rights now, how fake theater positive and negative treatment speak for and get away with speaking relevant to where and how many people have tried to speak what our soul says, humanity, the suburbs, let alone definitely New York City, tactically, criminally, foreign influenced identity grounds, identity relationships to itself. All exceptions and all exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing, and of its conjunction /s, and of its hyperconjunction /s to our syntax nature, therefore function nature. So we have to have mandated law followed outside of courts. We have courts offensively. They can't afford that because they already recorded themselves. You need to hide very bad roles with very bad things. They need to hide roles actually recorded self-valuing roles, the same things they punish, because they need to justify, since they were kids, recorded how kept. You need to self-value roles with databases involved, data reception, evidence reception, racketeering worse than war crimes, and identity reception, racketeering worse than war crimes. For example, that's what it is when you blame on other things, others themselves, exactly where the breaching method wanted you to, why and how those sick things were in with the law. You blame the breaching method or you're making a mistake. That when they blame our founding parents, they are expressing physical delusions, our campuses, stewards. Not by accident, they are expressing roles with that which is recorded as actually recorded, vertical and horizontally connected, databases oriented, predicate acts roles, and natures and motivations of roles with that, but also from for that, this is maintained also during that from off campuses motivations, nature's needs and interests. And those are maintained specifically to maintain collusion with that needing to hide from and hurt and value hurt each age of fact correlation nature, again, further at locations per what it caused at all locations to keep collusions there, woven through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, not theory. This is what is actually recorded. They have people coached to pretend people make theory. And then when they do all these things after people make simple sentences, when we catch them dead cold, doing with evidence is crimes, interbranch at locations with the foreign and with hyper foreign. Just this method knew that by keeping countries individually grouped and together, criminally foreign influence. Science's self-valued roles in defenses of themselves, they will keep them increasingly need to hide that from correlation nature's means to discern it. Same way the overt criminal enterprises use logic that you could discern as fake and delusions wrought simultaneously. You could discern as a nature that is in collusion too when you look further with the people that lock them up, including where and how some of them are not really gangsters or whatever they say. They're kept needing to hide overt criminal, their lie progressions, finite active progressive lies, sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slander roles with everybody else. Preventing the revelations. In other words, the answers about why people fight about color and things like that, and they want to debate about racism because they can't afford they're offensively preventing demonstration of what I caught them doing through time between unconnected campuses and uses of homeschool family kids, and then as young of adults and their family members also criminally involved with it, including and especially differentially if they were undercover and making that narrative up. The people at Hartford Hospital involved with this 3 times, 2 times. One time I made it up, so I made people call the police without telling them why, because I caught them with child abuses, untimely death rolls with the Wethersfield Police and their roles with drugs on and off Trinity College with an untimely death and identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities connected too, confessions. So they will connect and demonstrate the connections between things to me. So they delayed me from telling on things with and as clicks that have been telling on me and other people as fake things in the background through time, which will also be and or had roles with this, which is also recorded to discern. But since they were kids, they were victim predators of this game. As everyone speaking to others, criminally foreign influence. All exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. And don't forget that it's about criminal insidiousness. Nature's a positive treatment and negative treatment simultaneously. So the Boroughs Book gathers us. Look, return. The Legion forms. Be means, redeem. Redeeming, learn. So the pamphleteers, the species body cries through pamphleteers. This is where we gain, we train, we gather means. So in other words, we're gonna have to, we have means. We just need someone who's gonna be that transparent source that works with the government. Just we're not going to just go, because we're going to make a hyper agency because we have needs to do this. We're going to make it. There are people that are involved with the word posse and the name Longview Posse that are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with some courts and some police forms and political families have been planting evidences with these crackpot fakes. CT now breaks. Now they have their kids involved with it now as adults because they got locked into identity theft, fraud, slanders, and way worse. Roles with investigators of that. All private tied to it, involved with evidence reception, data reception, identity reception, racketeering, worsening war crimes. Don't forget, that's what the treatments of black and white are about. That's what you say at the youngest grade. That's what you understand and know. And who denies it is going to present the evidences and proof of this. And they have methods by that and motivations for it standing that are other, but they are also juxtaposed. I'll use remotely too. We should be examining this. You guys are pretending people are making theories. You guys are doing this. So they have them used remotely. Like pretending, okay, this is one of the things inherent to the patterns to think people that did things right and wrong. They're lying about people that did things wrong. And they're hiding their lie progressions afterwards. They have all methods to do this. More interesting is the methods that keeps it motivated. So you have to start with what I caught them doing at the youngest campuses, ages, and with the locations next to them. And you have to get response when we have doctors like a Dr. Graham, and we have a Bob Chase involved with forensics locations, also with the people on Facebook, with Facebook crimes with them, with child abusers and their patients and criminals involved with various natures of federal crimes and physical delusions with them since before they got caught. So you have some physical delusions, wrought predators involved with the justice system of other countries and ours in collusion here too, and they kept needing to hide their life progressions. And they have mental diagnosis of people. They've been fabricating the audio to get it off. They've been needing to hide that more and more. They've been needing to hide the uses of themselves and of their family members at corners of streets, along routes and things like that, associated with the shared policings at locations off campuses relevant to their roles with the on and off campuses, vertical, horizontal methods, plural, and the method plural. But that entire method, that entire sophistication of and as the unity as the government that is present at locations, areas, and states, and their identity at the government's level. They are still criminally foreign influence together. They are still self-valued roles with means and needs presented to them, needing to hide this by hurting each age. The fact human nature is actually inherent, active, and progressive means. For example, relevant to those things like why and how people where prejudice and racism becomes what they claim is apparent. The styles of logic only capable of being, only a loud voice, or they steal your voice. They have racism as an apple before the face of New Yorkers, of people throughout America, people throughout the world, because they have divide and self, blame on other things, others, and or on selves, with the breaching method caused and maintains by causing it more and more, and by keeping the real causes of it, by doing things to maintain the real causes of it, of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures at all locations, areas, and states, intersciences further, inter-database relationships simultaneously that have nothing to do with that. Those members are kept all locations, areas, everyone next to everyone kept needing to have the same life progressions. Per this method that has the volume of our investigators use remotely criminally foreign influence, self-value, distinctly from the overt ones, and the private too. Boxing, Zaul, here, New York, return, hear my name, we here come. New York, this is speaking to you alone, truly. No one cares for you. No one cares for any location, but we're gonna. You guys are easy to discern how you are forsaken, sickly distinctly from other Americans, and how that is self-valued by the people involved, recorded to an extent conscious of it, and recorded needing to blame on other things, others, ourselves, the real cause of it, because they already blamed that on other things, others, ourselves. They're already self-valued for other motivations, natures, needs, and interests that people think. But even that was used by worse. Let's all rehearse. Just follow. See, once someone says, okay, I believe, let's start the Boroughs Book. Let's start this game. We'll train. So the Boroughs Book is education. Look, it teaches how to use the pamphleteers, the species cries, but yet has not, has no heart, no soul. Your legion, hear your name, prepare, behold. So, Romulus science is the science of the Republic, now that it is abridged, now that it has only been known abridged since ancient times. Control your minds. Attend. This timeless campus fills forever's means in ways again, and right there and then. Enter the legion strong. Hear all amend. Complaints. But as yet the legion faints. I'll train. Once we've gathered right, this way we'll gain. So this is how. So the pamphleteers will be organizing all the things in step that with the Boroughs Book is going to organize another way. It's gonna put all the simultaneous. It's gonna parts of the simultaneous things. They have to go together to heal New York, interstates, This will move Hartford, the heart of Hartford. Oh, we'll beat, we'll jump, we'll pump and pump again. Prepare, my friend, ye New York. Body rest. The rest of the body. And refresh. See, we're going to set up the circuit. Like pull the lawnmower cord. We jerk it. We never berserk it. Just dance it. We dance it. We do it. We jerk it. Just want to go berserk. You berserk it. I don't know. So anyway, we won't get into things like that because then we shut down industries for artists. Whatever we're going to do, we are going to do though, is shut down the industries in different ways. Theater, only as criminal and ceased in its nature, has spoken for positive and negative, where there are locations associated with news, what they call the news, and journalism. See, a certain kind of victim predator, that each identity of sophistication / non-sophistication was in collusion with, as arrays effectively being and having been maintained, also as styles self-valuing and having self-valued, styles of logic, of identity theft, fraud styles, roles, of that self-value being and having been against everyone else. Right before they saw them, right before, when people walk by each other down, this is perfected art, relevant to where and how we have the streets of our cities, that were designed, the streets of our suburbs and cities, the scales of things, forced by that torture and slavery method against our founding parents that they wanted and needed, told, was involved with slavery, North and South, and how they forced them to fight with each other, sick fakes, because all locations, areas, and states were still criminally foreign influence for that method entrenched through all kinds of motivations, natures, needs, interests, apparently other, but juxtaposed with that was already had engineered roles with uses of that, way worse. See, but everyone was missing how all that was way worse when they were blaming what was unfathomably bad on other things other than themselves. They couldn't fathom what would be worse. Just like the ancients couldn't fathom